story, unfortunately, isn't possibly going to be as funny as some of them that you've heard, but I hope that you hear my heart, because that's what I really, really want you to hear. At the age of 9, most children are more concerned about what the cafeteria might be feeding them. Maybe it's their least favorite vegetable or dessert, while other children are really concerned about their parents talking about being divorced. My biggest concern at the age of 9 was keeping my dad's secret, the one that he revealed behind a hill beside our house one afternoon. His secret was that he wanted to become a woman. And with that detail, he continued to tell me how he was unhappy in a heterosexual relationship with my mother. It wasn't soon after that when he began to emotionally and sexually abuse me. I was becoming a mess very quickly. I just really wanted a dad like any other 9-year-old girl, somebody that would love me and treasure me and take care of me. Soon I thought, well, maybe I was adopted. You know, the rejection that I felt, surely that was the answer. As soon as my parents would leave the house and I would be there alone, I would go up in the attic and scour through all the boxes that had clothing and documents and going through all the paperwork. But every time I searched, it was fruitless. There was no paperwork. My dad, indeed, was my biological father. That was really a hard thing to understand. The pain had continued, and before I knew it, I was in 7th grade, and I had learned to really stuff everything in, not dealing with it, just pretend it's not there, then that way you don't cry, you don't feel anything. But I had soon discovered that in 7th grade, I could gain the attention of young men, and so that really became an addiction of my own. In 9 months, I had 13 boyfriends. Once I got one's attention, I had to find somebody else to see if I could conquer. At least in my way of thinking, I was conquering. In 8th grade, every chance I got, I would take a bottle of wine, and if it was Jack Daniels in the high school bathroom, any way at all that I could escape and medicate the pain that I was feeling. By the end of that year, heading into spring, I thought maybe life really wasn't worth living. Seriously considered 2 different ways to end my life. And what really stopped me from going through with that was the fear that I wouldn't be successful. If I ended up in a coma or possibly handicapped in a wheelchair actually frightened me more than making it all the way through and just being gone from this earth and ending it all. 9th grade, I hung out with some dear friends, but the influence was not what I should have been around. Drugs was their thing. And I thought, you know, the liquor just isn't quite cutting it anymore. Possibly if I would take a joint, snort something, it would even help medicate a little bit better. But you know, God is so good about knowing when to intervene, when to come in the midst of our storm where we are to meet us where we are at that time. You see, God had sent a friend named Mark. And Mark came from a Christian home, and he was just so full of love and joy and laughter. And though I just thought it was another boy that I would get to conquer, I found out that he wasn't like the other ones. He really wanted to get to know me, who I was, not what I looked like or any of the sexual satisfaction, none of that. About 3-4 months into our relationship, he bought me my first Bible. And though we had a Bible in our home, it actually stayed in the drawer. My mother never got it out, and we just were never taught to read it. So with this first Bible, I would come home from school anytime. I would take it to study hall with me. I was so hungry for those words of life. And they honestly were words of life to me. Because I found out though my earthly father had rejected me, my heavenly Father had not. And the love that he had for me, and the boundaries, and teaching me, and encouraging me by letting me know that he was with me. Even though I felt alone in our home, he was with me throughout the days and the very difficult times. What I didn't realize at the age of 15, going through all this, was how desperate I was going to need those scriptures in the days to come. When I was 18 and graduated from high school in June and July, Mark and I had gotten married. And as I was preparing to walk up the aisle with my father, my dad was beside me, and he turned around and just looked at me and said, I wish it were me in that dress. And my heart sank, and all I could say is, God, just take me through. Give me the strength to walk through so that nobody knew that my heart was crying and that I just wanted to run up to that aisle to meet my groom and to escape. Once again, I stuffed everything down, and my husband didn't realize everything that was said till years later. 9 years and 363 days later from our wedding, my father had left to move to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where he had taken the life as Becky. Again, just stuff it down. But what I had found is that I had reached a depression that I never, ever thought that I could get, where it actually hurt to get out of bed, and I had to literally tell myself to put one foot in front of the other. And that was so difficult. Never did I think I would be so depressed. It was 13 years before I would see my dad again. And that really wasn't by choice. That was really by God's choice. My mother had come over to our house and let me know that he was dying of cancer. What I didn't know is that my mom kept in contact with my dad through the years. So that alone was a little bit of understanding and trying to put all these puzzle pieces together. I thought, you know, he's dying. Now's the chance that I have to forgive him, but am I ready to forgive him? Do I want to? Do I need to go to him as an adult to face him? And you know, one thing about it, when God has you in his hand and he wants you to do something, he's not going to give up. He's going to keep pressing in. And there wasn't any refusing my Heavenly Father at this request. I had found in those last 6 months of my father's life that as God is my witness, I wouldn't give them up for anything, no worldly possession, amount of cash or gold. Because as an adult, I had learned more about my father's life, more about his emotional pain and confusion. And I as well was able to address him about the wrongs that were done against me. We were able to forgive one another for the way that we had hurt one another, and at times, yes, judged one another, or the enviness, all of the so many different sins that we could be committed of. It was so precious, and you know, it was the first time that I experienced God's amazing grace. I would hear people talk about amazing grace, and I'm like, how do you feel that? What's that like? And it was on my last day when Mark and I went to go visit him at the hospital where I found him in a coma. And I didn't know if he was going to hear me or not. All I know is I had searched so long for the right scriptures. And then I come in and I don't know if he can hear me. But I thought, I've got to take that chance. I read the scriptures as I sat next to him, and Mark was over by the window, giving me some privacy with him. And I noticed his hand was turning cold, you know, and here was the man that had hurt me so deeply. And my heart was melting. It had been melting during these 6 months. And I'm rubbing his hands to keep him warm as his body is dying. And it was when I leaned over to kiss his forehead that I then realized the amazing grace of our Heavenly Father and what a precious gift that was. I looked around the room and I'm thinking of the conversations we had and what we had shared and the tears. And I thought, wow, look what God has done. Look at the power of what God has done. What I didn't realize, even at this point, was still my own brokenness or admit to. The Lord had so much to deal with my ungodly attitude and my hardened heart, that it was a process. And I am just so thankful that I have a Heavenly Father that did not reject me no matter where I was. We all have a journey to live through. Your journey more than likely is very different than mine. But what I would like to encourage you to do is to hold out your hands with your brokenness wherever you are, no matter what difficult journey you have to go through, and say, Lord, I can't do this alone. Will you help me? Because he will be there for you. He is there with you, and he will walk with you. He will not leave you alone in this alone. My favorite passage that I had read in my Bible was in Proverbs 3:5, as I had shared with a wonderful blessed lady yesterday. Trust the Lord with all thy heart and lean not unto your own understanding. And that was so powerful to me. Trust the Lord with all your heart, Denise. Trust me with your heart. I won't let you down. That is my prayer, that everyone here will know the strength in those words and to trust God no matter what you are going through. Thank you.